give any more hint that something may be wrong. I'd really had enough of all of this, so I didn't want to turn my phone off. And but I also wanted to watch this show that I wanted to watch, and what I did was then, and that is a pretty good indication of what surveillance does to you. I called my mother, whom I knew was watching the same show and really didn't want to be disturbed by watching that. And I called her and said, listen, I'm not actually calling you, I don't want to disturb you very much, I'm calling you because I want to tell the cops that I'm going to turn my mobile off so that I can watch TV. I felt a bit funny doing that. The really funny thing, though, is it worked. I didn't need to turn the mobile off. The did it just stopped. Other bizarre things. Oh, actually, I forgot something that I was supposed to do in the beginning. While I'm looking over there, I'll do a little excursion in the very middle of this. Law cases, legal proceedings, as you can all imagine, are extremely expensive. We need more than 5,000 euro a month to pay all the lawyers. I have a little box for donations over there, and it would be very nice if you could pass them around and donate a little bit, because we are not rich. Thank you. Now I go back to blogging about funny things. The complaint the federal prosecutor filed against the release of Andrei from prison was had several reasons given for why he could not ever be released from prison at this point, and why he was so very dangerous. One is that so-called, in legal terms, it's called danger of absconding, meaning that the danger that he would run away and flee was so great that he needed to be in prison. And one of the reasons given in the document by the federal prosecutor why apparently the danger that he might flee Germany is so great is because earlier that year Andrei has applied for a job in the Netherlands. And there was a phone call between him and his mother, who was worried a little bit and said, but then assuming you were accepted in the Netherlands, how are you going to deal with the situation with the family and the children? And who's going to live where? And then he said, well, maybe in the beginning I'll have to go by myself and go back and forth a lot, and then if it is a long-term situation, then we might all move there. And this was considered evidence enough to say that apparently the close social ties that were given as reason for him to be released from prison don't exist. Because apparently he is willing to live away from his family in the Netherlands, and so needs to be put back in prison. Which I thought was rather amazing, because all of the unemployment agencies in Germany, I think, consider this something rather normal to do, even if you have a family that you actually like and want to live with. Also, another thing that was stated as a reason for him to actually need to be in prison was the danger of repetition. And that is something that I found also rather bizarre, because what he is accused of is forming a terrorist organization. Meaning that the danger of repetition, and this is actually stated also quite explicitly, means that once he's out of prison, there is a danger that he might just go out and form just another terrorist organization. And I would really like to know more about what the police think, how terrorist organizations get formed, because I had thought this worked differently. Other things, one story that I really kind of thought rather drastic and I actually didn't manage to write about yet is an anonymous call that happened at the Institute of Sociology at the Humboldt University of Berlin. An anonymous call to one of the colleagues of Andrei at the Institute of Sociology, saying that the cops had demanded 20 to 25 personal files of people working there to get those files to be handed over to look at them. And the university never commented on that. And we thought that is really rather drastic, to have one sociologist being accused of terrorism and have his life being investigated in such a way already raised a lot of attention. The idea that 20 or 25 other intellectuals or academics are being subjected to this kind of investigation just because they are sociologists and work with Andrei seemed rather rough. Again, the university never never confirmed this information. It was just an anonymous call. It may have been made up, I don't know, but I thought it was, I can imagine it's possible. Also, Andrei's account to the network files that he has at the university and to his email on the server at the university. While he was in prison, the password was changed, which normally can only be done by the person themselves. Of course, you have this rhythm when you have to, like, sometimes when you have these big servers, you have to change your password, or you're asked to do another one every so many months. But this clearly happened, and that's documented while he was in prison. We contacted the data protection, what is that called, authority of the university as well as Berlin was contacted about this issue, because it is rather, I think, not really complying with data protection regulations that someone breaks into network files of the university and can access the files not only of this one person but of the whole department of the university. And what came out of that is that yes, the password was changed. Yes, somebody probably messed with all of these things. It cannot be proven how this happened. We don't know who that was, and the data protection authority said that there's different possible ways of doing that, either pressurizing someone who has access to the password or real hacking, but since there is no proof, there is no case made out of that. But this apparently, I'd say, is rather evidently one of the methods of the policing, of the police trying to get information, which I thought was rather strange, because the legal possibilities that they have are already rather wide, and then to use methods that are clearly illegal seemed surprising to me. These are some of the stories, and there's many more in the blog. Most of them are in German. I'm really sorry about that. I would like to have time to translate all of that into English or write both English and German, but my life has been rather intense and I just didn't manage. Maybe someday I will. The reactions to the blog were surprising to me. I didn't expect to have so many reactions. I didn't really think that this would cause so much stir up. People who read it in the beginning were friends and family, which was my intention, because, like I said, I wrote these things down to tell people who I knew anyways, and to not have to repeat these things all of the time. And then, of course, bloggers, other bloggers. I started to get to know the German blogosphere better than I did before. And then there's people with an affiliation to new media and technologies who are reading my blog. And of course, people who follow the legal proceedings. I think these are basically the main groups who are reading what I write. And the reactions, there are several types of reactions. Lots of people were extremely shocked. There were many people who said that they find this especially shocking because they thought something like what's happening to us only happens in totalitarianist states. Some even compared it to fascism, which I wouldn't do that, but it happened several times. The comparison to the Eastern Bloc, to China, Korea, Russia was done several times. One quotation, I would never have thought that we would get this far in our democracy. Other people considered it to be very brave to do a weblog about surveillance like that. There was also some more theoretical thoughts saying, for example, is it dissident to blog about everyday life? And I'm thinking about how blogging is a dissident act in itself. Others said it's a way to gain back autonomy when you're living a life of total control. There was another group of people who very explicitly said that they were afraid to comment on my blog as a part of my blog, or even to link to my blog, or even to look at it. As a part of this law case against the so-called militant group, it became known that the Federal Police of Germany has done a so-called honeypot and has some information about the militant group on their websites, but they log all the IPs who look at that website. And so people very clearly drew the parallel, also saying that if they just look at my blog, they will probably also be under investigation. And actually, I thought that for the people who said that they really worried about whether it was okay to add comments, to do that as a comment, I thought that was rather a little brave step to do as well. And then the obvious also happened, and this is something that I was rather afraid of in the beginning when I wasn't so sure whether it's a wise thing to go public with all of these things. There's the discussion whether actually I'm just paranoid with all of these things, that like, of course phones can crash, and of course phones make funny sounds, and your TV makes funny sounds, and sometimes there's technical problems, so you call somebody else than you originally wanted to. All of these, of course, can be technical mistakes. And but then the big majority said, yeah, okay, it could just be a technical problem, but as she is obviously living with surveillance and so many things are happening, then it's rather likely that actually this is a result of surveillance. There were also people wondering whether I'm real and whether the story is true and whether I'm not just somebody else. And other people try to help us in saying how we could better protect ourselves. For example, that we should be using encryption or Linux, or should use prepaid mobile phones and change them every 2 hours. And which I thought was kind of cute, because I was surprised to see that apparently at least partners of sociologists are accused of always using unencrypted windows. I did have an encrypted hard drive that was seized by the federal police, and until now I don't know whether they managed to crack it, but I would really like to. And it was given back to me two days after it was seized. All the computers were seized also during the raid. Even my son's computer was seized, and that was the biggest argument that I had with the police officers in our place, because I said, listen, my son had his birthday yesterday and he was given a computer and he's never even tried it, and how am I going to explain to him that his birthday present is gone? It's easier to explain why his father is gone, but the birthday present... And after 2 hours of reasoning about this, they agreed to just copy it, and they gave it back the same evening, and my son never knew. Anyway, we had all of these people telling us how to protect our privacy, which I thought was very nice. And on the other hand, I thought maybe this is the worst possible moment in my life to start protecting my privacy more, besides the fact that I don't really think it helps in this situation, because assuming that we probably have keyloggers and all kinds of listening devices and maybe even bugs in our room, and I'm pretty sure that pretty much everything police can do, they have tried on us. So I'm not quite sure it's worth it spending so much time now using more encryption, because at the moment my point of view is that assuming they know it all, personally, I don't think this can be criminalized the way we live. I'll not even try to hide anything at the moment, at least, even though generally I do think people should protect their privacy as much as they can. What I found surprising is, I had hoped in a way that we would find out more how in detail surveillance works. I had hoped that people who know more about these types of things would also comment and explain the little mysteries that I have experienced, and explain why this happens or why that happens. And that happened very, very little. And I can tell you that I'm always open for this kind of information, because I still would really like to know how this works and how these things are being done. What also was triggered was a general debate about surveillance and the different laws that are in the process of either being realized or introduced at the moment. One person said, this is exactly the reason why we don't want to have online searches, no data retention, no phone tapping. Or somebody else said, I only now understand all the details of surveillance. Some other quotes. if only half of this is true, it is very dark in Germany, very dark. Or can't say that you didn't know